p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Heather, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then can you please call roll?
The following board members are present at the District Administration Office. Scott Andresen.
Here.
Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Al Dahlgren.
Here.
Zach Dorholt. Here. Diana Fenton.
Here.
Shannon Hawes.
Here.
Heather Weems. Here. The following cabinet and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of E5 Learning Nikki Hansen, Executive Director of Community Education and Community Partnerships Shannon Abenson, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Amy Scalarud, Executive Director of Human Resources and General Counsel Tracy Flynn-Bowe, Executive Director of Innovation and Technology Services Katie Herbold, Executive Director of Operations Matthew Boucher, Executive Director of Special Education Danny Mayer, Director of Community Engagement and Communications Tammy DeLand, Media Technicians Paul Novak and Gordy Scott, and the custodian on site is Emerson Beamer.
Thank you. Then I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's Board of Education meeting and work session agenda.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Heather, can you call vote?
Zach Dorholt?
Yes.
Shannon Hawes?
Yes.
Heather Weems, yes. Scott Andresen?
Yes.
Al Dahlgren?
Yes.
Diana Fenton?
Yes.
Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of personnel staff changes. Item B, approval of proposed revised board policy 899, naming school district facilities, third reading. Item C, approval of new board policy 990, memorials for deceased students and staff, third reading. Item D, approval of proposed revised board policy 610, field trips. It's a statute formats only change. And item E, approval of proposed revised board policy 801, equal access to school facilities, and again, a statute form only change. At this time, does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Heather, can you call vote?
Shannon Hawes?
Yes.
Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Zach Dorholt? Al Dahlgren?
Yes.
Diana Fenton?
Yes.
Heather Weems? Yes. And Scott Andresen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have one informational item tonight. We have the summer reports for the 2024-2025 Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness and Achievement Integration Plans. Welcome Donna Roper, Director of Research Assessment and AI Integration, and Ayan Omar, Director of Equity Services. Glad to have you guys. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent Putnam, members of the board, colleagues, and listening community. Thank you for the opportunity to present our annual update on the Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness and our Achievement and Integration Plan. Tonight, we're going to share with you the 2-year progress on our A&I plan and highlight some of the new, what we're calling CACR requirements around stakeholder voice and some of our successes and persistent challenges. So to start with, before we dive into the results, it's important to understand how these mandates connect. So we have 3 interconnected sort of planning frameworks, if you will. The CACR plan is a state requirement for all Minnesota school districts with 5 foundational goal areas. This does replace the World's Best Workforce mandate. And of course, the A&I plan, as you know, is a funded strategy specifically for racially isolated districts like ours, focusing on integration and closing opportunity gaps. And so these aren't really separate initiatives, they're sort of nested within one another, and they're all helping us work toward the same ultimate goal, which is ensuring that all students in our district have access to excellent educational opportunities. This year, the state added a significant new requirement. Districts now must systematically gather and report on stakeholder voice. This isn't really new for us. We've been doing that for quite a while. And so I just want to share how we do it. And part of it is we do these surveys 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, to students, staff, and families. They're available in English, Somali, and Spanish, although we often don't get a very high response rate from our multilingual families, and so we recognize that surveys alone don't capture the full picture. In order to supplement that information, we do look at holding affinity group meetings, if you will, focus groups at certain times when we need to. Our superintendent has often done that, gone out into the community to hear what they have to say about topics and issues. What we're hearing from our surveys that we do is encouraging. We know that our families that respond are feeling welcomed and confident in school safety, for example. And there's also high trust in teachers and staff. However, it's been noted here, and it is very apparent in our survey data, that the student-to-student relationships is a growth area for us. And so while we, have observed lower rates of what I would say peer kindness, inclusion, and respect, especially at our middle and high school levels, we know this is something that we want to address, and you will see us actively doing that. Friday is a perfect example. We'll be holding that Changemaker Hub, and that's one of the things that we're going to be asking the students who attend that to help us better understand. Before I walk through these results, I just want to explain our approach to this reporting cycle. As with anything new, we have opportunities to sort of reframe and do things a little differently, and so the way that we are going to approach our reporting of our goal areas is we're going to acknowledge that we set both process and product or outcome types of goals, and that what you see here are the assertions that we're making as a district around whether or not we've met the goal. You'll see, for example, in our All Students Ready for School, we set some pretty extensive process goals around making sure, for example, 100% of the families that were on the wait list were receiving high-quality school readiness materials, and that was done. We set goals around screening, and that we made progress in. So in conversations with Director Flynn and with Assistant Superintendent Nikki Hansen, we have a really good focus in that early readiness area, and we feel strongly that for the goals that we set for this metric this year, we did meet them, and we are on track to continue to make progress in that area. When it comes to closing gaps, we set a pretty rigorous process goal, if you will, around making sure that our systems can help us identify who is and who is not on track. And so we also had some other goals around interest surveys, around gathering assets, if you will, and that's work in progress. This data collection process around gathering what kids bring in terms of assets to help us understand better so that the approach to closing learning gaps can be more successful, if you will, is a work in progress. And so while we met several of those goals, we didn't meet all of them, we still conclude that we're doing extensive work in closing gaps, and so as a district, we met our annual work in that area. When it comes to college and career readiness, we don't have the data yet to ascertain whether or not we feel comfortable saying we met our goals for the year. That data will be coming in shortly. I expect that in by the end of what month are we in? November. I expect that by the end of January to see that on the SLED's website. So that one is a little bit, because of the goals we set, we're unable to give you a definitive on that one. When it comes to all students graduating, obviously, we've got higher expectations. We aren't satisfied with the rates that we achieved in this goal year of 66% for a 4-year rate, 71 for a 7-year rate, so we are asserting not met. And then for the lifelong learners area, we have lots of growth opportunity, not only in the goal setting area, but just also in the foundational skills area. While we had multiple metrics in there, the one metric that gives us reason to say we don't want to say we are fully met there is that 51% of our students are meeting targets at foundational reading levels, and so that is something that we want to improve. When we turn to the Achievement and Integration Plan, I want to pass it to my colleague to the left here and let her speak to how we did on those.
Awesome, thank you. For the Achievement and Integration, which targets, as Donna said, specifically our racial groups and focuses on 4 key goals. We have 2 achievement goals, 1 integration goal, and 1 goal that focuses on teacher diversity. You could see the data, just as with the CACR, in each of these goals, goal areas, we establish both process and outcome goals, as well as strategies that we put into place to help support that goal. And our assertions here are based on reviewing evidence, both what you see here reflected. The results represent our comprehensive assessment of progress. So for our graduation rate, for our Black, Hispanic, American Indian, and students identifying as 2 or more races, our target is 85% by 2026. And for everyone's awareness, this is the year 2 progress. 25-26 will mark the final year of our 3-year goal that we set back in 2023. Current rates range from 40 to 61.2%, which shows that we are currently not on track. Our second achievement goal focuses on literacy, reading proficiency for the same student groups. Our target is 50% by 2026. Current proficiency rate ranges from 25 to 36.4%. Again, as you see, we are not on track. Our integration goal focuses on improving access to high achieving courses such as concurrent courses, AP, PSEO, and the goal we set for by the end of 2026 that from 11% to 25%, again, for those same student groups. This data is currently pending in state. We're waiting on for a final report. We'll be sure to share that out as soon as it comes out. And our final goal that we're exceeding is that we will increase our teacher diversity from 8% to 8.5%, and we're currently at 8.5%. I'm sorry, 6.38%. That's how we're exceeding to 8%, and we are currently at 8.5%. Our racially identifiable school currently is Lincoln Elementary, and that just means that Lincoln has an enrollment of protected class students, which African American, Black, Asian specific, our Latino students, our American Indian student exceeds more than the 20% points above the percentage of protected students in the entire district for the grades served by that school. We had 3 goals for Lincoln. The first one being literacy. We aim to increase proficiency from 16.7% to 36% by 2026. This year's result shows 17.2%. We're not on track, though we did see some incremental growth at Lincoln that we're excited about. Our integration goal for Lincoln looks at family engagement, that we're going to commit 100% for every new family that enrolls at Lincoln would receive a welcome meeting and ongoing social emotional learning team connections. I'm pleased to say that we've met this goal. All new families are connected with staff and are receiving a welcome a welcome meeting. And then finally, at Lincoln, we wanted to focus on a teacher diversity goal as well, aiming to maintain or increase teachers of color at Lincoln. We met this goal with a total of 4 teachers. So we're maintaining or exceeding that goal currently. And I will return it back to Donna.
And then this slide here, just because the A&I goals don't tell the whole story, right? And none of this single data point, high-level data does. However, I did want to share with you some highlights and celebrations where Lincoln's North Star accountability data did show us some positives. And so consistent attendance was one of them. We were significantly above the state threshold of 61.8%. And this just really reflects strong family engagement and student connection to school. The other thing is we are seeing reading growth across multiple groups. Asian students increased to 19%, Hispanic students to 19.1%, our white students jumped to 37.8%, and from 37.8, they went down actually from 37.8 to 30.2. But overall, what we believe is happening is that the instruction in reading is sticking, right? And so we are seeing progress related to reading. Math, the math progress is also exceeding the state's threshold for progress. And this isn't beautiful data, I will be absolutely honest. I mean, we want this to be better, but we want it to be better everywhere. And so the fact that our Lincoln students are beating the statewide threshold is really something to celebrate. So just keep that in mind. Again, these indicators really show that Lincoln is doing important work. Students are showing up, they're engaged, and they're growing. Proficiency, while it's lagging a little, the conditions for learning at Lincoln are strong. So that's the important thing to remember. I also want to just be, this isn't a new conversation for us here. Despite our extensive efforts and our community partnerships, our expanded learning supports, all of the things that we are doing focused on professional development and closing learning gaps, these gaps on these measures, they persist, okay? Not unique to St. Cloud. Minnesota has seen very limited movement on this metric for over 20 years. And so it is our framing that these gaps reflect structural inequities in resource distribution. It is not a failure of our students. It's not a failure of our families, nor is it a failure of our educators. So our approach is to focus on what we can control and what we can do, and that's high quality instruction for all, early literacy intervention, equitable learning conditions, and opportunity to learn, access to opportunities to learn. We want to emphasize improving access, not perpetuating comparisons between student groups. Our goal is to ensure every student has the resources, instruction, and support that they need to thrive. Finally, looking ahead, because we are afforded this new area of goal setting in the CACR report, we will be refining our lifelong learner goal framework to be more comprehensive and more actionable. Here, I'm just sharing with you 7 potential focus areas. As we go through the next several months working together with stakeholders, for example, on Friday, as we learn more and as we meet with our continuous improvement process teams and our building leadership teams around our instructional vision, we will get much more clear on these areas for goal setting, and we will start to gather evidence and information to support that we are moving in the right direction with these things. So I'm really excited to get going on that work because this is about the whole child. This is about creating success for our kids beyond their stay with us. And so again, where does this leave us all? I think it leaves us in a place of we're listening. I think it leaves us understanding that we're making progress in key areas and we are continuing to commit to the hard work that it takes to do that. It leaves us in a place where we're acknowledging we have persistent challenges, We're not ignoring them. We're going to tackle those head on. And that we're refining our goals and making commitments to being evidence-based in our decision-making, continuing those strong community partnerships, and just a relentless focus on removing barriers and increasing those opportunities to learn. And so that's our presentation for tonight. I don't know if anyone would like to have any questions, but thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Al?
Can you please explain to me in clearer terms what structural inequities in resource allocation is? Because that was what was behind the whole thing.
So what I would say is that it's more than just what we do in our classrooms that is impacting these persistent gaps. We know from the research that about 26% of what we do can be attributed to the performance gaps, right? The other 70, nearly 75% is has been shown in the research that there's other factors that are affecting that performance.
Outside factors,
Housing.
housing,
Health.
poverty. Poverty is, I mean, there's no secret that poverty is the number one factor that drives inequities in performance among students. And there's no, I mean, as the performance of the St. Cloud School District has, and I'm not going to say the performance, so again, we still have the same teachers we've ever had, or that we've always had. Teachers aren't getting worse. They're getting better every year.
You know, on that point, personally, I am confident that the work we are doing in the science of reading is the right work around foundational skills. I will tell you the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment does not assess foundational skills. It assesses much higher skill development. It's more complex than that, right? We should see an improvement on the MCA scores eventually, but not if we don't couple our instruction with good comprehensive reading strategies as well, right? So in other words, we can teach kids to decode, right? But we also have to teach them how to connect things. So it's a complicated task. Will it bear out positively for us? I'm confident science of reading instruction is going to be positive. But is it going to show up on an MCA test anytime soon? I don't know how soon.
Okay, then my last question. If the MCAS is testing a higher level and not just foundational skills, what is the impact of our language immersion programs? Because I do believe in language immersion, the long-term results of that often demonstrate that dual language learners have much higher reading and comprehension rates over time. That's not always the case in the younger ages, because in order to be learning both, my assumption is you're probably learning the foundational things really well because you're learning them in two different languages. But if it's testing at a higher level, what does that do? How do our immersion students compare?
Yeah, and I'm going to say I don't know that we would notice. I mean, we should see the same pattern. It'll be a similar pattern. And it's true, students who are in our immersion programs, and similar to other districts I've worked in that have had immersion programming, oftentimes you see a delay in their performance until they hit about 4th or 5th grade, and then it just kind of goes through the roof. So I don't expect that there will be a dissimilar pattern than what we currently have. It'll continue.
Well, it was definitely. Is there any place in Minnesota that is showing really positive results in terms of proficiency gaps? I mean, is there a model out there that we feel really good and, I mean, I hate to say it, but gives you hope that, you know, with continued.
I'm going to say, as someone who is currently sitting on a committee at the national level, right? One of the findings that we are coming into is this idea that we really need to go after classroom assessment practices. And the standardized tests don't help us understand sort of the culturally sustaining assessment practice that is necessary for us to really make big headway in this work. So at the measurement level, experts are now saying, like they're saying, okay, we gotta go backwards a bit and rethink where the lever is. You know, we can look at the standardized scores, we can admire them for another 20 years, or we can get busy and really get focused on classroom assessment practice, high quality classroom assessment practice.
What's been really exciting to me is every year we have teacher diversity on our goal. And it's been made very clear that you can bring teachers of color to a district, leaders of color to a district, but the retention hasn't been there. And so I think we are a model school district for the way that we have recruited teachers of color, but also have affinity groups. And so thank you, Ion, and all for your work on that. You know, that's one of those things that I think it plays into that teacher-student relationship that, you know, we're scoring above on that. And that's a beautiful thing. Of course, I always hate to see the student-to-student issue, and we've talked about that for years as well. I'm excited to be there on Friday with my daughter. So, you know, just to really figure out what's going on with our students, because I don't think they want to be in conflict with each other, but the dysregulation that happens because of poverty, because of racism, because of those inequities that we're seeing comes out with the people sometimes you're closest to. So I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And this isn't an easy presentation to give, because we all want it to be different. But what I know about the school district is that we'll keep working. And, you know, 0.4 isn't much, but to one child, that's everything. To one child who moves from 2 grades behind to on track in 1 year, that's everything. If it's in 3rd grade, it's really everything. So it's tough to look at the whole picture and see those areas where we need to work on still. But thanks for that individual focus as well, and that climate that you've brought to our community.
Thanks, Donna, for your work. I just have a question on a slide. If you can go back to slide 4. Close achievement gaps, met, all schools tracking students on track. I just want you to help articulate that for everyone, what that means, because from the view, it looks like, oh, we've closed the achievement gap, and that's not
Nope.
not what that means. And I just want you to articulate that one more time so people understand that a little better.
What I want to make sure we're doing in this area is that we are appropriately acknowledging the efforts and the work that are being done to try and move the needle on this. So when our teams get together and they set 6, 7, 8 goals in this area, and we have an A&I department that has, you know, strategies and funds to move some of this stuff, there are some that are moving, right? There's definitely successes, but oftentimes we have to say, nope, nope, nope. So we are reframing how we are going to share our story about work on the opportunity gap. And I think it needs to really be contextualized to the efforts. I'm not trying to spin it. I don't want you to think that. Like, I want people to understand lots and lots of work is happening and a lot of really great things are happening and we are having successes, right? But for us to come here year over year over year and say, no, 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 is really deflating, right? And so I will be 100% on board with not met when we look at the data and I see, yeah, we didn't do our stuff. We probably, but for going forward, we're going to be really looking at this as, are we doing, our best effort? Do we think we did what we committed to doing? And, we have plenty of ways to acknowledge where we're at on the standardized numbers. And we got lots of people out there doing it for us.
Thank Okay, next we're moving to our discussion and action items. First up, we have a discussion item, the multi-purpose athletic facility project update, welcoming Ryan Rademacher with JLG Architects.
All right. Evening, everyone. How about now? No? Hey, everybody. Thanks. All right. As mentioned, I'm Ryan Rademacher with JLG Architects. And I'm here to give you an update on the Multipurpose Athletic Center. I was here back in September, and we walked through what was at that time our design development progress. And we are now in the construction documents phase, and wanting to share with you the progress of it, as well as be available for any questions that you may have as we move forward. So just to highlight a couple things, I'll zoom in here a little bit on the schedule. So as I mentioned, I was back in September reviewing this with you. So we're currently in construction documents and moving towards our bidding phase. Now, you recently approved the bid pack 1, which was for the legacy pre-engineered fabric structure, so the large envelope for the building and the structure. So now we're moving towards bid pack 2, which would be for the remainder of the project, all of the other parts and pieces that will make this building exist. So we'll be looking to complete our documents here in the next couple of weeks, and then turn over to Bradbury Stam for them to issue out for bid, and once you guys have approval for that. And then looking to start construction in May, roughly, of 2026. Now, you'll notice that we're looking to bid January, February, and it'll be early January and February. The idea is that we also have to go through a state review period. And in that, once we submit the documents, there's approximately up to a 4-month period of review with them, hence review and then back and forth, and wouldn't be able to start construction until after that. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll zoom back out. So this is the site plan, and there have been a few updates. We've recently had some comments and feedback with the team here about some things around the site plan, and so we have made some adjustments to it. We'll have roughly 169 parking stalls, which is slightly under the code requested. However, we have a designated area, should there need to be additional parking required, that we have that will then meet that requirement, and that's what's dashed in over on the right-hand side of the screen here. Can you guys see my cursor? Yep, okay, great. So on the north end of the building here, we have also included an extension to the parking on the west side. And that was also an area previously that was designated as future expansion. But upon further conversations with board members and design committee, we determined that it made sense to go ahead and fill that space in now for the added parking, and it just allows for a nice flow of circulation. So people will arrive here. We understand most people will want to park close to the building and then circulate throughout. The entry is actually in the northwest corner right here, and so I'll move on and show you that in a subsequent slide. One other change from design development is that we had the large overhead door for moving equipment in and out and things like that on the south side, but that posed challenges from an access standpoint, especially with this trail along the south side. So we've moved that over to the east side of the building and put that in this location here. And so it's a safer and better access location for it. And then we have a large area that will be great for snow stacking and things of that nature during the winter. Oh, yes. So there are some stop signs also that were added here. So we do have stop signs at this location here, so that coming as traffic is moving out from this area as well as coming in here, that you do have to pause and stop before moving, circulating through. And on the island right here. Okay. So another thing that wasn't yet fully developed during the design development, and this is kind of a roof plan looking down at the building site itself, rotated, so north is actually to the right-hand side of the page. So we have the sidewalks that circulate all the way around the perimeter to accommodate for as parking anywhere. And there's a large buffer zone in between because this is a huge roof with a lot of snow. So we've created these zones that will be fenced off and then filled in with large riprap rock, which is roughly, they're about 6 to 9 inches in diameter. So they're a large, very low maintenance or no maintenance sort of landscaping that will be in that buffer zone around the perimeter of it. The main entry then is in this northwest corner, and you can see there's a little canopy that's outside, and you saw that on the initial image in the very beginning that I showed. So those were a couple of the updates, and all of this these are a work in progress. So by and large, the design that was presented back in September is what we were moving forward with. There's just been some minor modifications, and really now it's about brass tacks, the details of how we communicate with the contractor how to build this. So the most of what I'm showing and sharing here today is not the pretty pictures, it's just, some of the details, and I'm sparing you all the details because the set will be 90 to 100 pages of technical details. So. This is the overall floor plan, and there's just a ton of information on here. And so we break these down into smaller components, but this gives you a sense of overall floor plan. So if you were to enter into the building here, like I said, in the northwest corner, there's a vestibule right here, and then you come into the reception. There's a nice lobby area just adjacent to that. And so there's a couple of different access points onto the field, one right here, as well as another one right here adjacent to this waiting and lobby area. There's stairs up to the mezzanine level that we discussed before, as well as a limited use, limited access elevator. There's an office, and then a team room for gathering, for team meetings. And for the field itself, as we had mentioned before, it is a full-size soccer field with for all sorts of activities. And there are some other drawings later in the package that highlight different components of that. So breaking down what each striping plan is. And there's a hierarchy based off of color for that so that it won't look like this jumbled mess as you're trying to play on the field. Moving through a little bit deeper into the plan, as you go through this lobby space here, we do have the restrooms. And so zooming in a little closer on this block, we have a series of handicap accessible restrooms right near the front. There's a third one here down at the bottom end of the restroom block. And that one has an adult changing station. And then there are a series of single stalls on the west side, or what would be the planned south side. And the wash basin is here, and that's on one side because each of the restrooms on this side have their own sink in the restroom themselves. There's a large mechanical and plumbing room, as well as the janitor's closet, and then a very good-sized storage, which is really critical for a large athletics facility to maintain good storage for all the equipment. And then further south is just more of the infrastructure, so IT closet and electrical room, as well as another stair for access. So another key thing that we have done as an addition from design development that didn't exist previously is that we've added some daylight to the field area. And in particular here, there's some glass that is adjacent to these exiting doors here. But as we move down around this running track, walking track, in the corners, we've also added some glass so that you have both views out as well as some daylight coming in. And that happens at each one of the corners, which is going to be a nice effect for this facility and be great for the users. Any questions here? Okay. So next up is moving up is to the mezzanine level. And so as I mentioned, coming off of the lobby, there is the stairs and an elevator. Right off of the top of that, there'll be some circulation and then the batting cages. So there will be 2-lane batting cages with a divider curtain that allows you to open that up into one large space. They'll come up right adjacent to this storage area here. And the storage area is really for just this mezzanine level to store equipment like pitching lanes and mounds and things of that nature. So we have a double set of doors opening to there. Just beyond that is then the golf suite. And so here we have 2 golf simulator bays, and this area down below would be a putting green. And so there'll be a little bit of elevational change in that. It'll be 2/3 flat, 1/3 sloped for that area. There's a waiting area just outside of the simulator bays. We've got a counter height a counter with some chairs that likely will be ADA accessible. So we're evaluating that and some other equipment supporting the simulators. So these are just enlarged plans of those areas that I just walked through. So this is the lobby entry sequence. The next page is the restroom block, and so this lays out the elevations showing the tiling and tiling patterns and things that we have in each one of these restroom areas. And then further south of there, so like I said before, in that overall enlarged plan, we break it down into smaller components so that you can see each one of these zones. And then moving on upstairs to the mezzanine level. So on this wall, this portion here, that actually overlooks the lobby space and the entrance. And so we also need to be able to support the batting cages. And so we have some steel columns that are in here that will be running wires to support the batting cages. And then providing mesh panels that will allow some visibility back to the lobby below and back up, and so that it doesn't feel so enclosed. But obviously is then safe and protects everyone that's up there. And this just enlarged of that Gulf Suite simulator area. These are our overall building elevations. So we have this patterning that is happening, kind of a rising and falling of this line wrapping around the building, the facility. The name is still being worked out, so we've left that somewhat generic here and just calling it 742 Athletic Facility. And again, that's just as a placeholder. That will be changing. You can see that we're also in the main entrance here on the side that's facing Apollo High School. We'll have that canopy here with a additional sort of change in fabric. And so these are not decals, these colors. These are going to be integral to the fabric of the exterior of the building. So it's a color scheme that we've worked out with them. And moving on. This just is some interior elevation looking from the field back at a section cut, actually looking, being able to see the mezzanine level, as well as this is actually an inverse, so it's kind of cut through. Maybe it's not the one I wanted to show. It's not looking back at it. I do have a 3D rendering that does show that. So this is the striping plan for the field itself. And again, there's a hierarchy of different colors. And so we've got soccer as primary, and then a full-size secondary for the U10 and smaller, softball as the next in priority, lacrosse, and then the football. And then there'll be a perimeter running track, which will also have striping and markings for hurdles and handoff exchange zones and things of that nature. Oh, back up. So a couple of other things to note about that is there is a perimeter fence going all the way around the field, and that protects both things coming onto the field, but also then as you're playing different sports, if people are utilizing the track on the outside of it, we have a buffer zone that allows, basically as a catchment area for that ball flying, whether it be a baseball hit or softball or soccer ball or football, whatever the case may be. And then there's a center dividing curtain as well that will divide up the entire field so that you can subdivide and have different activities going on simultaneously. So this is an interior rendering, and it's very similar to what was shown during the DD review that we did back in September. Again, on the right-hand side here is where that entry vestibule is, so you'll walk straight in to the reception desk. From there, you can go straight out onto the field or come up the stairs to the mezzanine level, either through the stairs or through the elevator lift, which is just to the left there. And there's a waiting area for parents and things of that nature, or others that are not necessarily using or playing. The surface in this area is basically like a walk-off mat type carpet. So it's a very durable, resilient carpet that will help during the wintertime, especially with all the people coming in and out from snow and salt and everything, just to be able to dry their feet before entering into the player zones. And then this is from the field looking back at that entry area, a similar area here. So we have that team room that's here, the reception area, the stairs going up to the mezzanine. And as I mentioned, there's another entry onto the field from here. And then I think the last one is just a little bit further. There's actually a third entry point at the south end of where the restrooms are, back and forth to the field so that you can directly access the restrooms from the field too. So that's just a kind of a general overview. The point is that we just wanted to review everything with you. There was not been, by and large, we're on track with everything. We're on track with schedule. We're on track with budget. So those are great things. And we've made some minor adjustments, which I've outlined here with you guys today. And aside from that, I'm here for any questions that anyone has and help address before we move into the final bidding stage.
I have, the only question that I have on this is exterior lighting.
Yes.
I don't see anything referencing Any
Yeah.
type of exterior lighting,
Yep.
either on the building or parking lot?
Yeah, so a combination of things. So we don't have the electrical plan shown in here, but as I'll go back to the site plan. That's probably easiest. So we have a series of light bollards that are going to be all throughout the entry sequence and moving around. And then we are uplighting the building itself on both sides, specifically, on this north side as well as then that south side. And then there'll be lighting poles in the parking area as well. Mhm.
Because they'll be used mostly at night.
Yep.
The other thing, and I know this isn't for this is probably jumping the gun on this, but that the batting cage is really visible. You can see what it's for, and if it's being used, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
Just like in our CTE areas, we always want to be able to kind of showcase what students are doing in those areas. Yet when it comes to the golf simulator area, and I realize it needs to be somewhat dark in there,
Yeah.
but when it comes to the golf simulator area, that looks like a storage closet. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's anything that can be done to draw attention to the fact that this is up there and that students are able to use it.
Yeah, we kind of went back and forth on that, whether or not to make that more visible from the outside. And I think ultimately there's some potential concern of we want to have control over that area in particular. So it does have a high wall, which is what probably you're referencing here from this facing this from the field side, right? But once you're inside the suite, it's really well done. It has a canopy over each one of the golf simulator areas, but just outside of that, it's open air. And then with the furniture and the lighting that is in there, it has a premium feel for sure.
And don't get me wrong, I do want it to be locked and secure.
Yeah.
Because I know that's expensive equipment and
Yeah.
you don't want people just going up there that don't know what they're doing and playing with it. But something to say to a person who's in the field here
Yeah.
that it's there.
So right now, what we're working on for similar graphics that are kind of moving around the building, and what you're not seeing here is some of the graphics and like sporting graphics and logos and those kinds of things. Those are a later stage development that we're sort of currently working on. So along both of the east and the west walls, there will be some graphics, as well as we're working on sort of a graphic for just outside of that area. And so that's how we were addressing that. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood to begin with.
Can you remind me, do the batting cages go up and down? Are they on?
They do
a-
not. They're static.
They're static. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a center divider curtain that is operable between the two of them, but they would stay draped around the perimeter of them.
And then I know you just mentioned about graphics, and those are still in development, but in terms of like restrooms and tiles and that sort of thing, is it a relatively neutral color palette or?
Yeah, so it's basically we've got a blue that is not necessarily a color, a school-specific blue, but we have two different shades of blue and white that is going for the tiles in the restrooms, and then we also have charcoal. And so it's a sort of a nice, cool, and soft color palette.
And then my last question, in terms of users, is there the availability of any secure lockers, or will there be a camera system in place? Because I would imagine theft is going to be an issue.
There are not any secure lockers, but yeah, cameras are at least in the entry points is where I believe that we've discussed, but
not in
not
the-
throughout. No.
So I would just recommend that that's something that you all talk about, because students will come in with their bags. They will have their cell phones, they'll have their wallets, they'll have whatever it is. And if they just put them around the edges, which is typically what
Usually, yeah.
happens, there are certainly risks. And I would just mitigate it on the front end, because otherwise you're mitigating it on the back end.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, do you have an inside rendering of what the bathroom structure would look like? It's just hard for me to visualize from here, like walking in and around that loop? Is it like a continuous loop, or just
Yeah.
help me understand that a little bit better?
I don't have a rendering of that area, so we can go back to the enlarged plan for it. There should be one up here. Here we go. So the lobby area is just outside of it here, and we have some vending on this side and a drinking fountain on this side. And yes, this is all open in here. So this is a partial height wall. So it's not a full height. It doesn't go up to the ceiling. And then this is a wash basin on this side. But yeah, you would circulate around. And there's an entry onto the field, on and off the field right here. And as you would come through, there's another one down on this side. And yes, another set of drinking fountains down here.
The only description, like up in the little teeny plans up there, male and female, those have a urinal in them versus,
Yeah.
are they going to be labeled, or what is that?
This is primarily set up for the state plan review because that's how they want to see it. After we get through state plan review, there may be opportunities to label them differently.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? All right, Ryan, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate
Yes.
everything you
Thank
went
you.
through for us. Next up, we have a discussion action item, approval of funding for the multipurpose athletic facility equipment. And joining us then is Amy Scalarud, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, school board members. So perfect lead-in after just seeing the revised plans, but what we haven't talked about yet is equipment. So there's a lot of both permanently affixed and kind of movable, portable equipment that's needed throughout the site to actually use and run the facility the way we intend to have it. So attached into the agenda and projected on the screen is the information, and these are estimates, these are not final amounts. No final selections have been made about what type of equipment, what brand. This is just really a very preliminary budget. But what we're doing tonight is requesting funding authority to cost share a portion of the equipment out of the community education fund balance. We know that this building is going to be used for district use for our own teams, but there is a clear intention to have a significant amount of rental through community education for the facility. And so the recommendation is to cost share that equipment. We have been kind of sitting on a relatively large community education fund balance. And we do anticipate that this building is going to generate future revenue that will ultimately probably replenish the funds that we're requesting the authority for this evening. So in total, we're looking at about $700,000 worth of equipment. You can see the majority of that is kind of in that very bottom section labeled as construction items. That is things that are permanently affixed to the bid and are kind of more of the part of the construction budget, with the largest being the perimeter netting that separates the track from the playing field to protect spectators or people walking from getting hit by balls when kids are playing. And then there's permanently affixed scoreboards as well as the golf simulators. So those are kind of the big chunk of the budget. That's about 500,000 of the 700,000. And then you see the rest of that is various items, nets, goals, portable bleachers, portable scoreboards, furniture and technology, as well as some maintenance equipment for maintaining both the building and the field itself. So again, in total, about 700,000. What we're requesting is the use of an amount not to exceed 350,000 of that equipment budget, so roughly half from that community education fund balance. And that balance, as of the most recent audit, as of 6/30/25, was just over 1.1 million.
just going to say it is a community building, and I think it's a good use of what really has been an excess of community education fund balance. It's just been sitting there for I think the entire time I've been on the board. So I would move that we approve the use of not exceed, what was that, the funds not exceeding, what was it, Amy?
$350,000.
$350,000 from the community education fund balance for this.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Al and a second by Scott. Any discussion at all? Heather, can you call vote?
Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt, Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Scott Andreessen,
Yes.
Heather Weems, yes.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Next action item, we have the approval of date, time, location of the 2026 board reorganization meeting. And we are presenting tonight that we would hold the reorg meeting Monday, January 5th, 2026, which is the first Monday in January at 5 p.m., not 6:30, 5 p.m. at the district office. So this is an action item, looking for a motion to approve that date, time, and location for the 2026 board reorganization meeting.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott and a second by Natalie. Any discussion at all? Okay, Heather, can you call vote?
Zach Dorholt, Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Heather Weems, yes. Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Scott Andreessen.
Yes.
Okay, and then we need to, another action item here, approval of the date, time, and location of the first 2026 Board of Education meeting, which presenting tonight would be Wednesday, January 7th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. at the district office. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the date, time, and location for our first 2026 Board of Education meeting.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Any discussion? Heather, can you call vote?
Shannon Haas,
Yes.
Heather Weems, yes. Al Dahlgren,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Zach Dorholt, Scott Andreessen,
Yes.
Diana Fenton.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Then we have Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we have two. Board Development Policy Governance Committee Chair Zach Dorholt.
District 742 School Board Development Policy and Governance Committee met on November 24th. Committee determined that, the committee, my bifocals are not being friendly tonight. The committee determined the third reading of both 990 memorials for deceased students or staff and 899 naming school district facilities would be included in the consent agenda. The committee also reviewed policies 610, field trips, and policy 801, equal access to school facilities, and determined that neither require substantive changes, as the updates consisted primarily of minor statute amendments. These two policies were also included in the consent agenda.
Thank you. And then we have Personnel Negotiations Board Committee Chair Natalie Copeland.
Yes, we met on November 25th, and we talked about a couple of things. Number one was the superintendent evaluation for 25-26, which I've sent out to board members. The committee worked on a tentative schedule for the annual evaluation of the superintendent and on updating the evaluation cycle for continuing superintendent contracts following the first 3-year cycle. For the coming annual evaluation, a tentative schedule was established, and it is as follows. In February, there will be a development of a survey or feedback mechanisms for evaluation. In March, we will survey identified community partners and the board regarding superintendent performance related specifically to community relations. On May 19th, we will meet as a personnel committee in a work session to review the data and prepare the draft evaluation summary. And then on June 3rd, we'll have a closed board meeting for the evaluation of the superintendent. And then following that, in the meeting on June 17th, the public meeting report will be given, which is the annual evaluation of the superintendent. The next thing that we talked about was negotiations update. The administration provided an update on negotiations for all the bargaining units of the district. 3 of the 11 contracts have been settled, and negotiations are continuing with the other groups. The SEIU filed for mediation with the clerical and nutritional services bargaining groups. Also, new school board member that's coming on board, Gina, in January. I'm really wanting warmer weather, has been assigned as the board representative for a new group that we have, which is the SCESP bargaining unit, the St. Cloud Education Support Professionals. And that is it.
I don't have a report. I was just going to say that this Friday evening and Saturday morning is the MSBA Delegate Assembly in Minneapolis, so both Scott and I will be down there for that. And I will be presenting the 3 resolutions that we submitted. All 3 of them are recommended for approval, so I assume that they will be. And I will say that in watching the tape, preparing delegates for it, Minnesota School Boards Association went out of their way to say that they were very appreciative of the write-up that Donna did on the resolution concerning data privacy and insurance for artificial intelligence. But she was speaking very highly of the write-up and told the delegates that she didn't want to get into it, but St. Cloud did an exceptional job of writing that one up. So anyway.
Excellent. Thanks for being there, and we are definitely proud. Okay, then we have future agenda items. The December 17th, 2025 board meeting topics will include immunization policy compliance update, presentation of final 2025 payable 2026 property tax levy certification, opportunity for public input on the final 2025 payable 2026 property tax level certification, approval of the final, can you hear me now? Okay. Approval of the final 2025 payable 2026 property tax levy certification, approval of naming of ISD 742 multipurpose athletic facility, approval of the 2026-2027 high school course catalog, approval of the 2026-2027 elementary school boundary redesign, and approval of tentative agreements, if any. At this time, does any board member wish to suggest a future agenda item? Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn our regular board meeting.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:53 p.m. And at that same time, the Board of Education work session is called to order. We have just one item up tonight. We have the 2026-2027 elementary school boundary redesign presented by Nikki Hansen, Assistant Superintendent of E5 Learning, and Lori Putnam, our Superintendent.
Thank you so much, Chair Haas, members of the board. We are excited to bring this presentation to you. This has been a long time in the making, or it feels like a long time in the making. We started in July, and so that's quite a few months. And why are we making these changes? You guys have been, you are well aware of the need. We've reviewed that many times, but in case anybody is tuning in new, we know that we've not reviewed our boundaries since the 1990s. And over those decades, we know that we've seen significant growth in Central St. Cloud, and it's caused uneven enrollment across the district. We've added special IET programs, including immersion and newcomer multilingual programs. And very key is we've expanded our early learning programs. And while we know we still have a wait list, we are pleased to have been able to offer access to more of our students. The core commitments are again not new to you, but that our students' experiences come first, to maintain community schools when we can, to use resources efficiently, and stability. We know that this is a conversation about change, and so all of those things, or some of those things, come into conflict depending on the decision that is made, but those are the core commitments that guided our conversations and our recommendations. As we think about the goals are certainly to make a legacy decision, since this hasn't been done in 3 decades. We certainly wouldn't want to be doing it any sooner than 10 years. And so we've taken a 10-year look forward and look back perspective. Nikki will talk about the data that's used to get us to that 10-year projection, to balance facility utilization and then to increase efficiency. The process, and I am moving quickly, so we started with a design team who are administrators and union leadership to come up with some design solutions. That went to an input team, and that included any families or staff who expressed interest in providing feedback. People reviewed that information, gave us input, and we made changes. We brought that then to community input, where again any stakeholders were invited to review the plan. We held those input sessions in English, Somali, and Spanish. We took that feedback, made further revisions, and then from that we made our final recommendation, which then Nikki and I did meetings with all of our elementary communities, all 8 of them, and included staff and families. And now we're here tonight, where we are bringing you the proposal for you to review, and then with a board vote on the 17th. The communication plan, this is available on our website in a much more open, less text-heavy design, but apologies for this. It was a lot to put on, but really wanting people to see the number and kinds of opportunities that we've had to communicate and gain feedback, and to really do everything we could to reduce any barriers to giving us feedback or having their questions, families or staff's questions or concerns answered. Following the board meeting on the 17th, we will be communicating, we press release this conversation, we have members of the press here, we'll press release again, and then we will share that out with all of our families and staff as well. And then we'll also be setting up dates for tours of every elementary school, so that any family who is considering transitioning or due to an in-district transfer or making the change due to a boundary redesign, then they'll be able to see the school, meet with the principal, meet with the staff, and get any questions answered prior to enrollment kicking off in full swing. So I'm going to turn it over to Nikki. And before I start, I just have to say Nikki has done a fabulous job. She has carried the load of the data and the remapping. She can tell you exactly how many people are impacted in any neighborhood, and I just need to publicly thank her. The amount of work that she has put into this is astronomical. So thanks, Nikki.
You are welcome. Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, members of the board. Tonight I get to take you through some visuals, some maps, and also some key considerations. We will look at large maps, and then we will go into each individual school. This here is just some of the data that was included in that legacy decision that Superintendent Putnam talked about in that 10-year decision that we were looking to make. And then just a little bit about timing, transportation, and placement. And so these boundaries will go into effect for the 26-7-20 school year should they be approved by you on the 17th. Students will receive transportation to their new school assignments and immersion sites. If students are reassigned, but the family do wish for them to stay at their original school, they can go through that in-district transfer request, that policy 599. It was important to our design team to keep that a part of our plan, and to ensure that we were thoughtful in the planning around the space and capacity of schools to still honor that family choice through that in-district transfer process. And then all current in-district transfers will be honored, and new in-district transfer requests will be paused until summer 2026. So more to come on the exact date that we will be processing through those, but we will need to take an intentional pause to get our community schools settled and staffed before we thoughtfully review those in-district transfer requests. So here we get started with the visuals. This here in front of you is going to be our current school boundaries. And I will pause, and if I go too fast, just let me know, because there are going to be mini maps that look very similar to this. So I'm going to go through the different variations to get to the boundary change. So this is current school boundaries for the St. Cloud Area School District. These dots on the map now represent a single or multiple students at a particular address or stop. And so this represents currently 4,149 PK through 5th grade students within our district boundaries, within the current boundaries. So one thing to note as you're looking at this visual is that concentration around Central St. Cloud, and that's where we're starting to see some of that capacity and facilities that are being overutilized as compared to some underutilized facilities within our school boundaries. Here, the shading, that blue on the bottom is going to show you that south to Tech pathway. The yellow shows you north to Apollo, and the red shows you Kennedy to Apollo for high school. And so that just shows our current boundaries with middle level programming. This is the proposed boundaries. Here's the middle level programming pathways in the proposed boundaries. One thing to note on this that is an area change that we will talk about more than once here tonight is that we currently have 8 elementary sites, 2 of which that had split secondary pathways. In our current boundary, we have a Discovery North and a Discovery South, which means I'm a 5th grader. Some of my friends go to the north side. I may go to the south side. That same reality was at Lincoln, which had a Lincoln North and a Lincoln South, which in this proposed redesign, we have shifted where now the Discovery boundary will all attend the north side. The Lincoln boundary will also all attend the north side. And we were able to do that, and that will be more clear why here as we go throughout the other maps. This map is one that we worked with MDE, which is actually an interactive online map tool, which we'll talk about a little later, but it will show you specifically the boundary change areas within our current boundaries. So the yellow shade is going to show you the change for 26-27. That is the proposal redesign that we are going through tonight. That blue shaded area is going to show you the 25-26 boundary redesign proposal change that you approved last January. Next, this shows the red was added to the slide for the number of students who are impacted within those areas. So we have utilized our data tool. We have went through and identified each individual student, who they are, what they need, where they live, where they currently attend school, so that we are able to program and plan for them, but also to know to communicate and also to be able to see the impact across this boundary redesign proposal. So those red numbers show the number of change within those boundary areas. Now we're going to get started with each individual school. We have 3 slides for each school and a few different map versions, so I will do my best to bring my cursor over to tell you where I am describing. This first map here, visual with the teal boundary, is the proposed boundary area for Kennedy. What you see in the middle, highlighted in yellow, is the only area of change in that, and so you can see this is Old County Road, Old Highway Road North, and what it now comes down for a borderline here is Highway 23. And so this area to the west of Highway 23 will now be added to Kennedy. And as you saw on that prior map, it affected 1 student. We can also tell you that students already attending Kennedy. So we have looked through some of those layers. Some of the key considerations here for the changes to Kennedy are taking advantage here of some space growth opportunities that currently exist. We did make a program shift, which we will talk about later, of our Spanish immersion program for the north side, shifting from Westwood to Kennedy in this program proposal. And that was really a commitment to stability and growth of our immersion programs. We currently have space constraints to allow growth within that immersion program at Westwood, and so we wanted to make that commitment to stability and growth for those immersion learners. And then also it was important to the design team to maintain a PK8 model out at Kennedy. You're also going to see for each site here a projected enrollment. And so what we see are a few things. This black line in the middle is going to be current To the left side of that is going to be past enrollment, and to the right side is going to be your projected enrollment. The blue line that you can see more clearly in certain maps than others is going to be future development gains. One of the things we are able to do with our tool is to turn on any projects or development that had been filed with the cities and the counties. We were able to capture that. And so making that legacy decision, we were able to see who has opportunity for growth within their communities in single family homes or apartment complexes, and where there wasn't as much room for future development and growth. And then that green line there gives you the birth rates and survival cohorts. So likely the enrollment will land somewhere in the middle, right, is our projection. When we look at Kennedy, you see a steady incline as we go throughout the next future years. That is the growth of that Spanish immersion program at that school. They are on track to grow about 45 students each year, which is currently 2 sections. We are kindergarten through 2nd grade at Westwood. We will be kindergarten through 3rd grade if this is approved next year at Kennedy, and continue to grow up by 2 sections each year following until we get to 8th grade. Of course.
What happened to Kennedy? I mean, it was going up, and then all of a sudden it's just the bottom fell out. Where'd those kids go?
Yeah, so this is just the reality of our data right now, Scott. And so we do see some students going to surrounding school districts or making other choices for enrollment. We do see one of the things that we felt confident with the stability and commitment and growth of that immersion program. As you can see in 2016, 2017, the enrollment at Kennedy was around 922. And with the growth K-8 of that program, we are going to be back to about that number. And so we know it's a beautiful facility that has some space opportunity and will be a wonderful place to house our Spanish immersion program. Next up, we are going to Westwood. Up here again in the teal area, you see the proposed boundary for Westwood. Here in the purple on the bottom, you're going to see those 2 areas of change. And then here zoomed in are those 2 areas of change. So this area, this is going to be 3rd Street North on the bottom of the picture. This is Highway 15. This is the BNSF Railway over to Cooper Avenue North. The black line in the middle is there because currently this little chimney cutout attends Discovery, and this little cutout attends Madison. So we are going to take this scoop for both of these areas to now attend Westwood. And that you will see in some of the considerations and also the future enrollment here. So considerations for Westwood: space constraints to grow the North Side immersion program. There was not room to continue to grow by 2 sections all the way through 5th grade. We would run out of classrooms, and so it was not an option to keep that program there. We also wanted to create stable enrollment for future projections, and there was some opportunities to pull in some of the enrollment, which is why we were able to capture that Discovery and Madison attendance area. Here we see the enrollment projections for Westwood, again, that current line at 549, and you can see future projections very stable in the mid to high 500s. Discovery boundary area is here. This blue teal area is the proposed boundary. You're going to see 2 pictures in the middle here. That's because in this top boundary, this is what used to be Discovery North and Discovery South. In the top Discovery North area, this blue line running up is Highway 15. And we are looking, and then over to Division on the north end, we are looking to capture some of the new development of apartment complexes that run along the east side of Highway 15 to go to the Discovery attendance area. And then you can see down here in this picture, this lower, kind of looks like a foot maybe, this lower yellow picture area is around Luxembourg, south of Interstate 94, and that area is going to get scooped into Oak Hill. Key considerations for this was space growth opportunities at Discovery, community-based preschool reorganization. Currently, Discovery houses 6 preschools, 2 of which are Discovery students, 1 of which is a community-based program because we have some space to do so, and 3 of which are Oak Hills preschools because they are in existing space constraints. And so part of this is making sure that our preschoolers have that opportunity to attend preschool at their community school location and be able to stay there through 5th grade. The other key consideration for Discovery that was intentional with our design team was to take a look at making Discovery only a north side secondary feeder, and we will talk about some of those reasons why here on the next slides. Discovery projection, you can see this building has been underutilized in our past history. We did take a jump of enrollment this year, and that was really due to the additions of those preschool classrooms. And we maintain that nice steady line in the low to mid 700s for a Discovery enrollment over the next 10 years. Madison boundary here on the far picture in the teal boundary is the proposed boundary area. Here, you're going to see a couple areas of change. Again, this first yellow boundary area was a change that did exist in current Madison boundary. This was Discovery, so that is not, I just couldn't delete it out of the picture because it was too close. And then this area here is going to be Division Street to the Mississippi River. This road is Cooper Avenue North, and then again that BNSF Railway. And this section is currently Lincoln that will now be attending Madison. And so some of the space constraints that we were experiencing at Talahi and Lincoln were able to be shifted up to Madison to balance enrollment there. Key considerations for Madison were to maintain the immersion programming and create some room for growth. We currently have Chinese immersion at Madison with 1 section in kindergarten through 5th grade, and hoping for some opportunities to expand that program as we create some space to do so. The core facility space limitations at Madison address the areas like the media center and the cafeteria, which does not have the same square footage or footprint as like our Talahi, Oak Hill, Discovery areas. And so as we get into the 700s, it becomes challenging to have enough cafeteria seats and tables and serving lines and space for all of our littles to be able to eat safely in those spaces. And so knowing that we were at capacity and needed to do some reductions there. And then Madison tends to be, as we track and monitor those in-district transfer requests, one of our most requested sites, primarily due to daycare. The reasons why on there is it's a central location, there's a lot of population, and a lot of daycares around that area and near that. So it tends to be one of our more popular sites for in-district transfers and wanting to create that space for choice for our families. Here we see the Madison projected enrollment. You can see that they have been anywhere from low 600 to 700s. We have them right now at a pretty stable line in the high 500s, again creating that intentional and thoughtful space to try and grow that immersion program. Oak Hill, here is the current proposed boundary for Oak Hill. You can see we have included that area by Luxembourg. Up here to the north end, you're going to see Pleasant Lake. Those students south of 94 will now attend at Oak Hill. A large reason for that south side Discovery area attending at Oak Hill was their location and proximity to Tech High School. So if I was attending all the way to Apollo, I would be passing and going quite a distance. And so by doing this, we were able to create some transportation efficiencies and also that opportunity to be close for that secondary experience. Here we see a couple circles because there's a lot going on once you get to the middle of the map. So this is that area that we've already talked about with Highway 15 to the east side around that new development. This runs up West St. Germain, Main Prairie Road, and then 25th Ave North. The other area of Oak Hill for change is over here. This is 22nd Street South. This runs down the Mississippi River to 33rd Street South. This is right around the St. Cloud Country Club area and then up Roosevelt Road, just to give you some proximity of location. This boundary area is currently Talahi and will be shifting to Oak Hill. Key considerations for Oak Hill was space for projected future development. We went through many phases. I think we ended up on model 5A, 4, So it went through many variations of mapping. But in every variation that we went through, Oak Hill was the highest amount of projected future development. So lots of already plans that are in place for growth, for neighborhoods, apartment complexes that could drive future enrollment. So we knew that they were one of our schools that already have preschool that is taken out because they don't have space, and they are a school that has a lot of future development and growth. So we needed to create some intentional room for that future development and growth within that community. We've talked about those current space constraints, including their preschool, along with other programming factors, and then those community-based preschool opportunities. Oak Hill projected enrollment, you see that intentional decline. It does drop them from 847 students down to around 707, but then you see that slow gain of that future development and growth line. We are very comfortable around that 750 to 800 mark for Oak Hill, and that will create the space to get preschool back within that building. Lincoln here, you see on the far side that teal line around the proposed Lincoln boundaries. You see here that yellow area that we talked about from Division Street to the Mississippi River, the railway and Cooper Avenue North that will now scoop into Madison, and that is the only area of change for Lincoln. Key considerations for Lincoln is not only experiencing a slight boundary change, but also a program change. 7 years ago, we went through a developmental design where we shifted Talahi and Lincoln as 2 schools, 1 community. We had Talahi serving preschool through 2nd grade when we opened that, and Lincoln serving 3rd through 5th grade. What we noticed 3 years ago was Lincoln couldn't hold all the 3rd through 5th graders, so we shifted them to Talahi. And they now serve preschool through 3rd grade. But what has since happened is Talahi couldn't hold all of the preschoolers, so now Lincoln has 2 sections of preschool and Talahi has 2 sections of preschool. And one of the unintended consequences that we did not see when we made that decision to do that developmental design split was when you have a cohort of students between 150 and 170, whichever site you put them at is going to tip them over. So we were not able to really balance facility utilization under that developmental design model, which is why we're looking at a program model change at making both Lincoln and Talahi PK5 sites and really staying focused on our community-based schools. This will create fewer transitions for students. If I am a preschooler attending preschool at Lincoln, kindergarten through 3rd grade at Talahi, back to 4-5 at Lincoln, it becomes a challenge. As well as our siblings are located at the same sites. We did hear from some families that it was tricky. If I have a 2nd grader and a 4th grader, I want them to ride the bus together. I want them to get home at the same time. So those were some considerations that we took into place in making that program model change. We also want to ensure that we have community-based preschool reorganization at both sites. And then another key consideration was Lincoln becoming only a north side feeder and getting rid of both that north and south side feeder at that location. Enrollment projections for Lincoln, we know it is a small but a mighty space. And so we are very comfortable with around the 350 students, and we see a great stable line. You will see in this map, you don't see that blue line come off, and that is really because Lincoln's fairly landlocked for future development growth. So you don't see a lot of discrepancy there. This one got very tricky because that boundary readjustment from Lincoln to Madison had to be made, or they sustained over 400, which would put them over capacity. And so that was really intentional to try and keep them in a spot where they could best serve students and create that balance of enrollment at that location. Next, we get to Talahi. Up here on the top, outlined in the teal, is the proposed boundary area. Down here, this is a goofy shape. So down here on the bottom, you're going to see 2 red circles. Those are the areas of change for Talahi. The first one is that area down Roosevelt Road, 22nd Street South, 33rd by the golf course, and up the Mississippi River. And again, that is going from Talahi to Oak Hill. And then we see the area, this is Minnesota Boulevard up by St. Benedict Center, and then you see County Road 8 coming down here. This was that change from last school year, which is why it's shaded in blue. So we have both impacting a change from that boundary decision from last January, as well as a proposal here in December. Key considerations, here we went through the PK5 model change between Talahi and Lincoln. Also, Talahi is experiencing the current space constraints, which is why they have 2 preschool classrooms currently being served over at Lincoln, and wanting to do some reorganization to get our PK through 5th grade community students in one school for their experience. Talahi projections here have them currently at 728. You see them down in the low to mid 600s, but a very stable line for projection over the next 10 years. Next, we have Clearview. This picture to the left is going to be the proposed boundary for Clearview. The picture in the middle is going to indicate 3 areas of change. Again, 2 of those areas are shaded in blue because those were decisions from last school year. We talked about this area up here to the north that used to be Talahi and is now scooping into Clearview, and also this area here near St. Augusta. This area was also a decision that was made last school year. The boundary decision for this year is again going to be down Roosevelt Road and then south of 33rd. So this is that 33rd Street South down Roosevelt Road. There are some newer apartment developments there that are, and neighborhoods that are going into the Clearview area. Key considerations for Clearview is we did have some space growth opportunity at that facility, and also to support class section counts and responsible staffing. One of the challenges that we have seen at Clearview is we currently have 2 Spanish immersion sections in most grades. We do have some 3 sprinkled within, depending upon cohorts of students. But we have pretty consistently over the last handful of years had 1 section of English, which presents some challenges as well. And so this may give us the opportunity, and likely will give us the opportunity, to have more than 1 English section at Clearview as well. Clearview projections put them up around the mid 500s. You can see that back in 2010 to 2015, that's where they were at. So we are very comfortable with that projection. And again, that also takes into consideration that future development and likely will land somewhere in the middle of those 2 lines. This gives you just a little bit of a view as we start to go through planning. We wanted to make sure we were intentionally to look at what does this do to secondary pathways and what does this mean for middle levels. We know that overall enrollment is up in 742, which is a great thing, but it also presents some challenges or just differences when we look at facilities and what space teachers have been used to utilizing. And so you will see in both north on the top graph and south on the bottom graph, steady growth over the next 4 years. So Lori, the Superintendent Putnam, and I have been very clear as we've been going out that even with these boundary redesigns, we are still going to be pinched in certain grades, in certain years, at certain levels because of our enrollment increases. And that's just naturally where students are at. The other key considerations for this middle level was knowing that we have current space constraints at South Middle School and Tech High School, and we have larger facilities and space opportunities at North Middle School and Apollo High School. This is going to get down to just some data and numbers for you, but just wanted to show kind of the intentionality of looking at each individual student, who it impacts, and how we're communicating this proposal. That very first box here is going to show you the 25-26 boundary redesign decision. Currently, the area around St. Augusta south of 94, there are 23 students in that area, 7 of which are already attending Clearview. So some of these students are already attending. The area south of Minnesota Boulevard, up that used to be within the Talahi boundary, is 121 students, 28 of which are already attending at Clearview. And so from that decision last year, we left that as a decision for families to make. With this boundary redesign proposal, this would be their new school boundary. That will impact 109 students from last year's boundary decision. In our table for this year's boundary changes, you're going to see, we can kind of go through line by line. The area west of 23 by Kennedy, we impacted 1 student. Current Discovery South area by Luxembourg impacts 11 students. East of Highway 15 around West St. Germain impacts 208 students. East of Highway 15 and north of 3rd Street impacts 83 students. East of 25 Avenue North to Cooper Avenue North and north of 3rd Street North, lots of norths there, impacted 41 students. East of Cooper Avenue, north to the Mississippi River, and north of Division impacted 54. And then south of 22nd Street South and east of Roosevelt Road impacted 44 students, and south of 33rd to Interstate 94 impacted 67, rounding out 509 students that will be impacted by this year's boundary redesign proposal if approved, and around a 12% change for our student population. The program, we also wanted to take a look at our program numbers to know how do we support students and staff and programming and be intentional as we move through next steps of staffing and support for next school year. For the Talahi Lincoln program model change, we currently have 111 fourth graders in the Talahi boundary area who are attending Lincoln. That will go back to Talahi. And we currently have 64 kindergartners, 52 first graders, and 54 second graders that are in the Lincoln area that are currently attending at Talahi, bringing us to 281 students who will be impacted by that program change. And then for our Spanish immersion program, we currently at Westwood have kindergarten through second grade running in that Spanish immersion program with 114 students. What we did here was we pulled their home school, so we know it's a north side program. What we have is 35 students with the home school of Westwood, 29 with Madison, 25 with Discovery, 11 who are open enrolled, 8 who attend at Kennedy, from Kennedy school area, 3 from Lincoln and Talahi, and 3 from Clearview. And you might be going, 3 from Clearview, 3 from Talahi Lincoln. That is due to our in-district transfer. Right? So they have opted into an in-district transfer and are attending immersion at those north side sites. That impacts, again, 114 students. A couple of the boundary redesign tools that we have made available on our website, we have kind of posted every step. So we've tried to really be intentional and responsive to asks as we've been out and gathering input from our community, and been posting those visuals and tools on our website, as well as working with MDE to create this online map tool, which is you click on the tool, you punch in your address, and it will tell you where your current boundary is with this boundary redesign. And with that, we will take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments at all? Al?
Back at the very beginning, you showed a map with a bunch of dots on it.
Yeah, I want to
That
see
one.
that again.
That one right there. And that is, each one of those represents one student, or each one of those represents how many students, or is
One
it
or
not?
multiple. It
One
could
or
be either. It
multiple.
is a stop. Yep, an address. So it could be, when I pulled apart
So
these
these are bus
dots.
stops?
It is a bus, well, it's a bus stop, could be a bus stop. It could be an apartment stop. So when I pulled them apart, there are some that have 64 students, there are some that have 1 student. So it's one or multiple.
Okay. I guess I was just going to say, I looked at this and it kind of shocked me at how much it was concentrated in the immediate St. Cloud area and how sparse they are in the outer outlying areas. And I was wondering if this whole plan is being built on resident students served, correct? And what would it look like based on resident students? We lose 4,000 students a year to open enrollment. Are they all coming from the outside of the school district? Whereas we're really maintaining a high percentage of the students within the St. Cloud area? Is that the truth? So, okay. Is there any, did we look, so we had a fairly big increase in enrollment this year. Did we look at where those students came from? Are they?
Do you, the question is, with our increase this year, do we have a sense of, or do you know where they came from? In the map, the geographic area? Mhm.
Not necessarily, but anecdotally, we had a lot from out of district, out of others from in the state. So a lot of transfers in from other school districts in Minnesota. And we had particularly high transfers in at 6th and 9th grade, and a lot of those were attributed to we did some non-public
I guess my question is more, is it coming from students who had opted out to another school district and they're making their mind up to come back to St. Cloud? And is that a trend we can expect to continue, or is that do you think, a one-time thing?
I don't have numbers on that. But I will tell you, like, we made those house calls at the beginning of the year, where we went out and visited all new students to District 742. And I know just in the, 30 stops that I made that day, at least 5 to 6 of those were students who had opted out and were coming back. Either they had been non-public or they had gone to a different school district and were coming back at, again, sometimes those transitional years, or because of some of what our high schools offer.
I'll just add, in the sense of the in-district transfers as well, we see the kids in 5th grade that are at charters come back in 6th, and when they are done at 8th, we saw some of the schools close, we're getting them in 9th again. And in my 3 years in this role, I've seen that more and more. When we look at our enrollment to Shannon's point, at the transition years, the students are coming back. We've also seen some of those outlier in that Kennedy area not go to Ricori or go to Holden for, and they come to Tech, right? We've seen a lot of that happening as well, just in the sense of us, when we get those inter-district transfers, we're looking of where they're coming from. But to your point, Shannon hit it, those traditional, at that transition time, we've been seeing those students come back to us at 6th and 9th.
So then my question is, if we think that would be a continuing trend, that we're taking back more students who in the past would have open enrolled out to another district or a charter school, how is that going to impact? You started out saying we don't want to change this for 10 years, so we're going to look at the next 10 years. But if we take back 200 students a year for the next 10 years, that's 2,000 students. And how is that going to impact this? Since I would assume, and again, this impacted me when you showed this screen. Yeah. I would assume that most of those open enrollees out are coming from the outer portions of the school district. So that would be Kennedy and Clearview would be the two most impacted schools. Is that? And I'm asking the question.
Yep.
I know you put a lot of thought into everything that was done. I'm just wondering if that was part of the equation.
Yeah, and I think at those transitional points, we have seen that pattern for the last handful of years. As long as Jason and I have been in this role, we've seen that transitional point. And so that was a conversation that we did have with our design team as we looked at those numbers and the facilities usage. The other thing, Al, to your original question, which is we are around 140 students in elementary that are over projection from last year, right? And that was some of that increase that we talked about when we talked about enrollment earlier this fall. The two schools that we increased teachers late in August was Discovery and Oak Hill, and both kindergarten. And so around those two areas are where we place teachers at. But as far as one school being heavier with those 140 over projection, they did sprinkle in and across grade levels relatively nicely until we got to those kindergarten classrooms and had to add 2 staff members.
I think, our answer is yes and no, right? Also to your question, right? The capture rates that you saw on there, right? The survival cohorts versus the max projections. That survival cohort is based on our current capture rate, right? Which increased this year, right? So it used that capture rate, which to project. So yes, we've used what we got this year, but to your point, we don't know, right? If that capture rate is going to stay or if it's going to continue to exponentially increase and where those kids will come from, that we do not know, which makes this a real challenging, right? It's a real challenging thing to do. And we also only know the growth we have a sense of where the growth can be, right? Just based on landlockedness, but we also only know what people have filed to this point, which is certainly not, 10 years in the future, right? So we are working with data that is as accurate as it can be, but not as accurate as we would like, because it doesn't exist.
Before we started the meeting, there was a question about capacity and enrollment. Are they different? Are they the same? What are we talking about?
Yeah, they are different. So enrollment is going to be the numbers of students who are attending. Capacity is going to look at some of that square footage of use of facilities. And I can tell you that that data was intended for our design team, and we did use it throughout these plans. We also triangulated that data. And what I mean by that is we didn't just solely rely on square footage of a room. We looked at our classroom target class sizes that we want our students to have an experience within. And we also looked at counting in each individual building map how many classrooms exist, and tried to triangulate that data as we made this proposal.
First of all, wow. That you knew every road? I'm like, this girl's been looking at this for quite some time. Things you maybe never wanted to know about St. Cloud that you now know. Amazing. I'm so proud of the move to have preschool at home sites. I think that, our desire for belonging within our community schools. Thank you. Also, I know that Chinese immersion parents have very clearly said, if we want to grow, but there's no room to grow, so thank you for making that growth opportunity at Madison. I have 3 questions, and they all are regarding Spanish immersion. A lot of Spanish immersion parents have emailed us with some great questions, and so I just want to make sure I have all the answers that I can. Can you share with us the decision to put Spanish immersion at Kennedy versus Discovery and kind of what went into that?
Yeah, I can. As we looked at some of the challenges, we knew that we needed to push a little bit west, and we knew that one of our core commitments was keeping communities together. And so without taking part of the neighborhood community of Westwood to Kennedy, and breaking that community apart, we couldn't keep Spanish immersion there. And without being able to keep that, there was a few proposals, and what I'm thinking about is there was a proposal of, could we keep K2 at Westwood and move 3-5 to Kennedy? But our core commitment was to keep programs and communities together. And so really the only school that allowed us to do that after reviewing the need for movement was to put it at Kennedy. It also gave us the opportunity to have that commitment to stability and to growth, and the opportunity to grow through 8th grade. And so as we looked through all the input, that was great input and great curiosities, right, as they gave us some ideas to move throughout, that was where we felt the best fit for the stability and the continued growth of that program would be.
Thank you. And so just so I make sure I'm clear, Spanish immersion, moving there next year, K through 3, and then that'll go up to 8th grade, and then this is, in that 10-year projection, then they'll go to Apollo?
Correct.
Okay.
They're a pathway to Apollo.
Okay. And then,
Natalie, may I
yes.
say, though I will say, because for some of our families, Kennedy is actually, Tech is actually their home high school, right? Because when you look at that Luxembourg area or the Pleasant Lake, I don't know but that is so much, right? That's a Tech neighborhood. So the nice thing is that we'll have Spanish at both high schools. So regardless of your pathway out of Kennedy, you will be able to be served 9-12.
So they could even do interest or transfer if
They
they
sure could.
want either one, okay.
If it got approved,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think what Superintendent Putnam
understand that.
Yeah, what Superintendent Putnam is talking about is we've now taken the layer of starting to look through each individual student, and we hit that Luxembourg area, which you might remember, sir, there's 11 current students in that area around Luxembourg. And the first 7 of them are already attending at Kennedy, right? And then Lori was like, oh, that's why I see some at the south side, right?
Okay.
And so we're really trying to be thoughtful about where that exists and how we continue that great programming.
Okay, thank you. And then my last one is, Have you done a look at what the travel time changes for students who are the 114 students, I think I'm getting that right, that are now at Westwood in Spanish immersion? What will their travel time changes be for busing?
That is on our list of to-dos. And so should this boundary redesign get approved, we will be working very closely with transportation and our routers to create some of those mock-up models of where those neighborhood community stops will be. Another question that we've gotten that you may have on your list is, if I live in the Westwood attendance area, I attend Spanish immersion at Kennedy, can I have my student attend Kid Stop at Westwood? And the answer is yes. We will continue that as a bus stop.
That's all I have. Thanks, Nikki.
You bet.
Anybody else? Ask your questions now, because this is coming back for approval December 17th. Any other thoughts?
I don't know that I have questions, but I do appreciate the process that has been used. And I think there were a couple of times where, and I'll just say this is leadership and this is messy work. And we talked about that when we went into it, that redistricting is hard. And it's hard because it's emotional and it touches people and it touches communities and how they see themselves and where they've gone. I appreciate that even though there was a time, call it 4 or 6 weeks ago, something like that, where there was kind of a movement towards one direction that was shifted, particularly around Spanish immersion. And I just want to say, having been in leadership roles, sometimes you have to revisit and you learn some things and you get some perspectives that maybe you weren't thinking about. That's what I saw. And I personally, as someone has students who have gone through Spanish immersion, the idea of a K through 8, I think is actually pretty incredible. And the ability to build that and from a pedagogy perspective, really grow what they're able to do. And again, just having sat on the board and listened to presentations, Kennedy is a special, they do some really cool things that aren't everywhere, community gardens and some opportunities outside that I think could really be highlighted. So while I understand and I empathize that for some people, this doesn't feel good, I'm also very optimistic that given the opportunity and for teachers to be able to develop those classrooms from K through next year 3 and onward and upward, I think it will be a really neat opportunity for those students, particularly as they get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and can integrate some of their language learning into much greater scopes with science and different subjects that you don't see as much in elementary. So I think there's some really great opportunities there.
Okay. I think that's it. That's all our questions. Thank you so much for all this work. We appreciate it. Okay, so that will be back for approval on the 17th. That was it for our work session tonight. So that's a wrap. The work session is adjourned. It is 8:42 p.m. Have a good night and thank you for watching.